Welcome to the You Person Podcast, a deep dive into how a new way of knowing is developing holistic, innovative leaders at all levels of the organization and changing the way business does business. I'm your host, James Tuzniau, and a big shout out to Lindsay Sterling for our highly evocative theme music, Between Twilight.
Without a new mindset, which is what the You Person Project is about, without developing leaders to bring society 5.0, but leaders at a 6.0 level in order to help presence that, in order to liberate self and culture and nature. The ways we're going about that right now are from a fixed 4.0 mindset. It's not even 5.0 society. And it's certainly not a 6.0 leader in how we've been talking about it.
And the thing that goes with the fixed part of that is when you're present, koan being a question that can't be answered with your rational mind. The thing is, when you get to quote unquote the answer, it's only the answer for this moment.
Right.
The traditional koans, if you say, what's the sound of one hand clapping? If you got to your answer to the sound of one hand clapping, it would only be the answer in this moment. And even for you. So for you next week, your answer to that koan will be different. So A fixed approach to anything, even the question of best practices, from the standpoint of presence and dropped in presence, the best practices in this moment may look very different than the best practice last week. Not that you're ignoring it. It's just coming from a different structure of mind and view.
And typically what you hear people talking about out there, what they're seeking or searching for is certainty. When if in the future that's coming, the way to operate is in the unknown with uncertainty, that's a problem.
The injunction might be one should be very careful of their certainty of their certainty.
Yes. Yeah, and that starts to point to the future blind spot that we're talking about, because they can't see that they're looking in the wrong place when they're going for certainty, and they're not going to find it there.
One of the metaphors that Daniel brought forward in this conversation we were having yesterday is, imagine Japanese architecture. Their homes, their historical homes, I don't know if they still are this way, Daniel.
Yeah.
They have movable walls in their house because they're changing. Their living space is changing and emerging, just like we're pointing to day, week to week. And so as we're facing multiple complex issues and challenges in a very steep change curve, an exponential change curve, which is often straight up, if we're not seeing what was here, what was good yesterday or last quarter or last week, isn't the same answer at all, and will require something much different. That is almost heretical to the current way business is created, because once you get a system and a structure in place, that's it. You continuously improve it, but that's the structure. You don't necessarily throw the structure away until you have something like a pandemic that's requiring you to throw it away, because you can't. I mean, it's illustrating, I think the pandemic, as awful as it's been, has demonstrated to us that we actually can do that. We actually can live in unknown and uncertainty. It hasn't been very comfortable, but we've had to come up with very quickly overnight different models, different ways of doing things, different answers that are 20 different answers to the same question we've had for a year. And so that's part of what the You Person Project and a 6.0 leader will need to be able to do, is to install a whole different operating system that allows a company to basically have movable walls that actually can come from a whole and learn how to work in an ecosystem that liberates self and culture and nature all at once.
And part of that ecosystem integration, when you were mentioning the unique signature earlier, that in nature's ecosystem, the individual signature is built into the ecosystem, so that when any one person's unique signature within a team It isn't their accountability. It's their unique signature that it would contribute to the ecosystem, and that unique signature, their flow, their search image, their attunement, their view, and all the things that make them unique then would apply to everything in the ecosystem, not just quote unquote a particular accountability. And then the integration of everyone's unique signature is less about their accountability or the department they're in, and more about the contribution of that signature to the whole of the ecosystem. And then everyone's unique signature becoming part of the unitive whole of the ecosystem, which you can see transcends in the way that trans-digital moves to quantum. It transcends their department or their accountability. And in the sports world, we recognize as something we aspire to, somebody transcends their sport. If we approach business in a similar way, what would it mean to transcend your accountability from your unique signature and your contribution?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the You Person podcast. If you are new to the podcast, please head over to our website, theyoupersonproject.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast, learn more about the project, or connect with our team. You can also reach us at hello@theyoupersonproject.com. If you think of someone who will benefit from listening to this podcast, please do share it with them. Thank you again, and see you on the next episode of the You Person podcast.